This is Laricy Live, and I'm your host, Matt Laricy. We're giving you unfiltered access to the world of real estate, where we can cover the market trends, news, and honest answers to keep you ahead of the real estate game. Laricy Live is brought to you by Lincoln Title. Lincoln Title is the best and most efficient title company in Chicago and is the best place to close your property. This podcast is brought to you by Titan Builders. Titan Builders have been remodeling condos and homes in the Chicagoland area for over 35 years. Whether it's remodeling your kitchen or bathroom or getting your home ready for sale, Mike and Mark are your go-to guys. Laricy Live is brought to you by Guaranteed Rate and Ben Cohen. Ben Cohen is the #1 lender in Illinois and can close your loan in as fast as 8 days. All right, so today we are here to discuss Q2 stats. That is the second quarter statistics of the marketplace. I like to tell people I'm a numbers guy. I'm a numbers guy in the sense that, like, I could always, not just me, but agents in general. It's like, oh, well, how's the market? Like, well, the market's great and blah, blah, blah. And they say the market's great because they're really busy. Or if, like, you have, like, a really busy week, okay, and you sell a bunch of stuff, and somebody asks you how the market is, and that week an agent will be like, well, the market's really good. I just sold 10 places, right? But, like, it doesn't matter what you sold. That's what I always tell people. Like, I'm glad you sold 10 places. Like, you had a great week. Awesome. Good for you. But that doesn't dictate the market, right? Because also that same person, you talk to them, they lost 4 deals this week, and like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. Everything's failing. Everything. The market is failing. And you're like, well, is the market really failing, or did you just have a bad week, right? And that's what drives me nuts about real estate and realtors in general, is the sense that, like, they base the market off of how they're doing or how their friends doing. They're like, well, I lost 4 deals, and Steve down the street at my office, who sits around the corner from me, they lost 3 deals. So I don't know what you're saying, but the market is bad. And I'm like, okay, well, the market might be bad for your office or a couple of your people, but, like, what do the actual stats say? That's what I say. It's like, generally, like, I could always tell people, like if you talk to me, I could actually say, hey, the market is unbelievable at all times, right? Because I have the most numbers. I've got the most sales, right? I could always say, oh, this is how great I am. Nobody cares about how great you're doing. Nobody cares how bad you're doing. Nobody cares. We all like to think we're important. I like to think I'm important sometimes, but listen, I'm a middle. I'm an ant. Nobody cares. What do people care about? How the actual market is doing. So that's all that matters, is what's really happening in the market. Now, this is my least watched and least talked about podcast whenever I do the stats. And I toyed with the idea of not doing it this time. But then I was like, you know what? For the very small fraction of you that are still listening, okay, I figured I got to do you justice and be like, here's the actual numbers of what's happening. And if you do like these, comment. Let me know. Shoot me a message. Hey, I like the Q2 stats. Because at some point, I may, if nobody ever does anything in this, it just becomes a waste of cash. But, and I do it for my own good. But I will still pull the numbers for myself. And I do think these are important. And, when I look at the numbers, what I could tell you is that, Q2 is always the best quarter of the year, okay? Now, I like to say Q1's the best quarter for, like, sales and contracts. But Q2 gets the benefits of all of Q1 sales. So when people say, like, well, I thought the most sales go under contract in March. And so, March and April. So, that's why Q2 is better than Q1. And I beg to differ. Like, I think the momentum of Q1 is what makes Q2, look like the numbers are the best. But really, it's Q1's momentum that gives it to you there. And that's why I say that, these numbers don't lie, but you can make numbers kind of tell a story that you want it to tell. Like, I could skew numbers in certain ways to make things a little bit better or a little bit worse than they are. And when we look at the big takeaway for Q2, the big thing to kind of know about is that we're still seeing the same old story. That tail, the tail that we've been talking about for 5 years now. Now, remember, real estate goes in 5-year cycles, and at some point this year we're going to talk about the 5-year cycles thing to watch. But we're in the 5th year of a 5-year cycle, and we can tell you that the tail still exists. It's like the bedtime stories reading my kids. My one kid loves this dump truck book, and I read it to him every single night. I've read it to him every night for the last year. Kid's got it memorized. He's only 2, but he knows what's happening in it. But it's like, at a certain point, like I tell him, like, can't we read a different book? Like, let's tell a different tale. Let's do a different story here, right? But for the time being, this tale still exists. The tale of two stories. I'm sorry, the tale of I'm thinking my kid's book. It's the tale of two cities. The tale of two cities still exists. And, what that tale talks about is that the downtown markets, which is defined by South Loop, West Loop, Loop, New East Side, Gold Coast, River North, Streeterville, South part of Old Town, is one market. That's the bottom part, the city that's lagging. And the outskirts, which is West Town up to Old Irving and Lincoln Square all the way down to Old Town Triangle, is a different market. So the outskirts, again, the stats show, are overperforming and the downtown markets are underperforming. But I can tell you, just like I tell my kid, at some point, we're going to have to change up books here. I think by looking at these numbers, the story is starting to change a little bit. I'm not saying it's drastic, okay? I'm not a knee-jerk reaction, but if the theory of 5-year real estate cycles is true, and this is the 5th year of a 5-year cycle, you would think at some point that the numbers would start dropping, and in the last 18 months, the numbers continue to drop in the favor of the downtown markets. And remember, when you start a new cycle, it's not like year one starts and the market just takes off like a rocket ship, right? So if 2020 was the first year of a 5-year cycle, it's not like Lincoln Park was unbelievable. In fact, it was terrible for the first 6 months because there's a virus and a lockdown and stuff like that, right? But at that point, when the numbers, the market started to really change. So if we look at this is the second quarter and we're in the 5th year of a 5-year cycle, and you look at where the downtown markets are, and we look at these numbers, it's like, hey, things may be changing. Change may be a coming, right? Change may be a coming. And so let's dive into these numbers, right? So these numbers are pulled from InfoSparks, okay, which gets its information directly from the MLS. I do a rolling 3 months when I look at it because I think that, what I do is I look at, this 3 months compared to the last 3 months. I don't pull it over a 3-year period or anything like that. I pull it over the last 3 months. So that's where these numbers come from. InfoSparks, which gets their information directly from the MLS. So let's look at the first one, the first block, sales price. Sales price in the downtown markets, including the outskirts, was up on average 6.5%. On average, sales price up 6.5%. Now, guys, somebody else will be like, oh, we're on pay. And this is what I hate when I hate when realtors post here's my midway point. I've done 200 million midway, and they're like, so that means I'm going to do 400 million. I'm always like, listen, idiot, you're not going to do 400 million, okay? Because the first half of the year, the first 6 months of the year are the best years, the best months. If you're lucky, you'll do half of that sales, meaning if you're lucky, you'll do 100 for the back half, okay? Otherwise, it's a totally different market. Show me your sales in November, December. So my point in that tangent is the fact that, prices are up 6.5%, but guess what? Q4, they're going to be down, okay? And it'll probably be down 2 or 3%, which means then you're going to be at 4.5%, okay, by the end of the year. The year is a marathon, not a sprint, okay? So in the second quarter, prices are up 6.5%. The biggest winner of a price growth, the golden statue. It's like the Bulls of the 90s right now. Lincoln Park. Lincoln Park's pricing was up 12.9%. 12.9%. That's your biggest growth. If you need to go in the key room, big guy, you could do that. I don't know. Take a look around. You could go as you see. We got little Joey the Jet in here. The kid just bought a yacht. Prices are up 6.5%. And I'll tell you right now, his money must be up a lot because he's buying yachts over here. Boats. Hey, tell everybody how that boat's going along, Joe. It's going great. Look at that guy. I think we might update his name from Joey the Jet to Joey the Yacht. The yacht driver. He's got his own driver on his boat, by the way. Joe, what's your driver's name? Justin. Old Justin that quit the team? No. Different Justin. Anyways, we're talking about sales price. Sales price up on average 6.5%. Golden Statue, Lincoln Park, 12.9%. Second biggest price growth, surprise, surprise. Second highest market in the city, Lakeview, 9.9%. Third highest growth of the year, of the quarter, Logan Square, 8.7%. After that, this one is a ringer, South Loop, 8.4%. Now, the South Loop's price has been in the gutter. So, if you go from 0 to 100, at least you could get a little bit of a price growth. So that doesn't mean the South Loop's market's been getting crushed. But then let's look at the downtown markets. The Loop is up 1.3%. Okay, so you got the Loop up 1.3, and then you look at West Town, which is up 5.7. Now, another one to watch is the near north side, which is Gold Coast, North Streeterville, south part of Old Town. That's 5.9%. So we are seeing some price growth, but not a ton, because like we look at West Loop and it's only up 0.8%, 0.8%. So, if we just look at the main downtown markets, I mean, I'm doing math in my head, but we're probably hovering around like a 3% growth, okay? And then if we look at the outskirts, we're probably, again, this is my head, probably around like 8% growth. So you're looking at 3% to 8%. That's a big difference, okay? So what we can see here is that Q2 is normally when we see the highest amount of price growth. So this is going to be one to really watch in Q3 is how much does price go up? Because I bet you that number is going to look more like a 2%, okay? So one to watch there. But again, winner, Lincoln Park. Moving on. Let's go. Market time, okay? DOM. You know what DOM means? Days on market, okay? We got these little expressions, these little sayings. So market time is a big one. I also think market time can be one of the most misleading stats out there, right? Because what drives me nuts about market time is that, like, the way the InfoSparks does it too is like, if I have a place on the market for 100 days and then I cancel the listing and then restart it, it looks like it's 1 day on the market. And like, there's certain ways to skew that. So that's why I say numbers don't lie, but they could tell a different story. So like, there's ways for me to hide that. So like, people think like I have like 1 day on the market. Because like, one of the biggest pet peeves I have is when a seller, I love when sellers like, what's your average sales price to list price to sales price ratio, and what's your average days in the market? And I'm always like, well, days on market's kind of skewed because I could make that stat look any way I want. So like, just know like some of these stats are a little bit misleading. But on average for the city, the average market time for Q2 was 47.5 days. So 47.5 days. That's a strong number. The highest amount of market time, the king of the north, the crown that you don't want to wear, the near north side, 96 days. 96 days. Now, that stat is kind of misleading as well because, like, I got a lot of clients like, well, I got a place that's, worth a couple $1 million in River North. Like, I'll take 96. These guys will take 96 days any day of the week. Like, above, like, $1.5 million, it's like 140 some odd days. It's, like, totally different, okay? So, like, it's totally different. And that's even if they sell. I should pull is, like, how many places come on the market and just don't sell? You know what I mean? Like what are the odds? Like, more than, like, 50% of places just aren't selling above $1.5 million. But the lowest market time was 24 days. That belonged to Bucktown, Wicker Park. So Bucktown, Wicker Park, 24 days. Second lowest was North Center, which includes Roscoe Village, at 26 days. Then you look at Logan Square at 31, Lakeview at 32, Lincoln Park at 36, Westtown at 35. I mean, these are all hovering like, close, the outskirts are hovering around all like in like the 30 days on average, okay? Now, here's one that could be misleading as well, because like you get a lot of people like, hey, something comes up in Lincoln Park, it sells in a day, right? Like, what do you mean it's 30 some odd days there, right? Everything I see sells in a day. It's like, okay, well, let's remember too, is that, by the time it goes active day one. They don't do showings till like 4 days later, okay? Then they don't flip the status to like 8 days, okay? So like a lot of people may wait 10 days till they go from active to contingent, okay? So yeah, it sells in a day, but the numbers don't really show the fact that it sells. And then people are like, but I feel like everything in Lincoln Park sells in a day. It's like, okay, not everything does, because the numbers show you that. You know how many like $2.5 million houses aren't selling? That are overpriced, that are really worth $2, so some people push it. Do you know how many people overprice their places because the market's so hot, so they think it'll sell? Remember, this is an average, okay? That means like other stuff that's out there. And then when we look at like the downtown markets, right, you got near north 96, Loop 72, South Loop 64, West Loop's 59, so you're hovering around roughly about like 70-ish days. So you're looking at a 30 days in the outskirts to a 70-ish days on the downtowns. And again, this is encompassing all price points, okay? If I broke this down to $1 million plus on the downtown markets, I mean, the number is eye-opening. And if I did it for like below 500,000, okay, so that's the other thing. That's the hottest market is below 500,000 in the outskirts. If I did that, the numbers are like literally it's like 2 weeks, okay? So just note that, like, again, this is a general basis, okay? But average market time, DOM, average days in the market, 47.5. The next one, my absolute favorite stat, you know what it is? Huh? Absorption rate, right? Months of inventory. Months of inventory, to me, is what dictates what markets are. Buyers, sellers markets, right? A balanced market, in my opinion, is 4 months. I've read some articles that think it's 6. I think it's 4. I think 4 months is balanced. I don't know where 6 months. 6 months is like a lot. Doesn't even make any sense. 4 months is a balanced market, okay? And on average for the markets in Chicago that we're doing this on is 2.7 months. 2.7 months is the average, okay? So that indicates that we had, so if somebody's like, how was the market in Q2? You could say, well, for the city on average, it was 2.7 months, which would mean it's a seller's market, right? So if somebody wants to ask me that, and then somebody's like, well, hey, Matt, I live in X. What do you think? Well, then I'm like, okay, well, I have the stat right here. You live in the near north side? Well, guess what? There's 4.2 months of inventory, right? 4 months is balanced, so that means it's a buyer's market. The Loop had 5 months of inventory, which would mean, guess what? That is a buyer's market. Then if I'm going down to the hottest market is Lincoln Park. They got 1.5 months of inventory. Guess what? Lakeview's got 1.6. Westtown, 2.3. Logan Square, 1.8. Bucktown, Wicker Park, 1.8. Roscoe Village, North Center, 1.8. Okay? So the outskirts are hovering around an average of about 1.7, 1.9 months of inventory, right? And then the downtown markets, you're looking at, West Loop's at 3.4, South Loop's at 3.7. So they're hovering around like 4 to 4.2 months of inventory. So they're a balance, a slight edge to buyers, which is like horrible for the hottest time of the year to be around that. Like they used to hover around like a 2.5 to 2.8. The fact that they're at 4.2 shows you that's bad. Now, again, if I pulled just above $1 million, that number jumps up to about 8 to 9 months of inventory, okay? And I did pull that stat. So their average for the downtown is about 8.9. 8 to 9 months of inventory for the downtown markets, which is double the amount. So that's a big seller's market. Now, a good thing to note is that number was like 18 months a couple of years ago. So it shows you when we talk about these 5-year cycles, it's getting better. And at the same time, like I remember just last year, a lot of the stuff in the outskirts was in that like 1.2 to 1.5. So we are starting to see a little bit of slowdown. Listen, a little bit. But what we can say is that based off the months of inventory, based off the absorption rate, we could say that, guess what? It is a seller's market. Last big category, closings. Closings were on average down. Closings were down 4%. So now people are like, well, if closings are down, this is what, like a lot of attorneys and telecoms are like, well, closings are down, so the market's bad. It's like, no. It's remember, it's like, the downtown market's got a bunch of inventory, but the outskirts doesn't have enough inventory to meet the demand. So guess what? You have not as much inventory and you have more demand. Like there's not as many options, so you're not going to have as many closings. If everything's on the market, closing would be up. In fact, I would dare to say that like if there's too many closings, like it's actually a bad market. You'll make some money, but like that usually sets you up for failure in the future. The place that had the highest number of closings, guess what? What property do you think it was? Lincoln Park, 12.4%. But then you look at West Loop, they were second at 12.3. Okay, so like there's a big one. I've been saying for a while that West Loop is cheaper than Westtown. Makes no sense to me. I don't know if you've been to West Loop lately. I mean, I'm not one to go out, but I like drive through it because we have like a ton of listings there, and like it's bopping, right? Like I mean, there's people out everywhere. It's hot. The people at the bars are spilled out. They're just slam packed. West Loop was, I would say, hotter than how Lincoln Park is now, back before the pandemic. And the fact that people tell me it's not going to happen, it's like the numbers are showing that West Loop's starting to make a comeback. Now, I got a bunch of places in West Loop I can't give away, so I'm not saying that like it's totally back, but I'm saying that like the numbers are showing that it's starting to make a comeback. All of the outskirts, though, were down the most. Like Westtown was down 8.1%. Logan Square was down 14.2%. Wicker Park, Bucktown, 15.2%. North Center down 17%. So when you read those closings, you would think, well, man, that shows you that the market's bad there. No, what's showing is that like there's no inventory to buy. So that's why closings would be down. People would love to buy there. There just isn't anything. Whereas when you look at the downtown markets, you look at, the fact that like near north side's at 2.1, Loop's at 9.1, minus 9.1, South Loop's at minus 1.5. So the downtown markets aren't down as much because they have more inventory. So if you get more inventory, you can have a higher amount of closings. They're still down from Q1, but like it's still doing pretty well. So, but overall closings are down about 4%. So our big takeaway when we look at these numbers is the fact that like this shows you that, hey, prices are up, market time is low, absorption rate that, it's a seller's market, and that closings are a little bit lower than we'd like to see them, but that's solely based off the fact that like you don't have as much inventory, which is why pricing is up, okay? Which leads to say that Q2 was a very strong quarter. I do believe that Q3, and we're already seeing it because we're a couple weeks in, is going to be a very strong quarter. It will not be as strong in Q2 or Q1, okay? Q3 is always weaker than Q2 or Q1, okay? And that's solely because travel season, summertime, people got stuff to do, and that, real estate isn't number one priority for all of them, okay? But just note, one thing to watch, I think a big one to watch, is the absorption rate, the months of inventory going into next quarter. and the pricing. I think pricing will be down, and I think the months of inventory will be up. Okay, so watch those stats, and you know what? I bet your closings will be up. So you can see how all these kind of correlate together. So that's all I got for you. If you like stats, if you like when I do these, I know 90% of people do not like when I do these, but I think if you do like to kind of follow along how the market goes, and you can go back and look at Q1 and Q3s that I do because I've been doing these for years now, it is a good way to try to predict the market. This is one of the things I use to try to predict where the market's going to go. This isn't the end all be all. It's just one thing. I like to look at stats. I look at geopolitical environments. I look at the economy, what's happened in the city, what's happened in crime. There's a million different things I look at to try to predict the market. This is a big piece of what I do. So either way, if you like stats, drop a comment. Thanks for listening to Laricy Live.